My name is Tendrin, for anybody who's new, since I didn't mention that earlier. Okay, so welcome. Let's get started just by really settling ourselves here in this moment. A good way to do that is to really bring our attention inward to our bodies sitting here. And by just paying attention to our bodies sitting in this room right now, we can leave behind the busyness of getting here and the planning for later. But in order to successfully do that throughout the day, to really experience each moment of our life as it happens, instead of thinking about it later or planning for it in the future, we really need to become more aware of what's going on in our bodies and in our minds, moment to moment. Of course, we still need to plan, and sometimes it's helpful to reflect back. But we also just want to notice what's going on now. So just notice how your body is doing. Just acknowledging any tightness or pain. Trying to let your breath ease any tension. You might want to take a few belly breaths, where you really expand both your belly and your lungs, so your breath can reach all parts of your body. And just remember the reason why you came here this morning. And just try to generate a positive motivation with a positive intention to use your time well. The Buddha said that it's helpful in exploring his teachings to listen attentively, but with an open mind, an unbiased heart, and with your wisdom. Not to just take the Buddha's word for it, but to investigate with your wisdom and with your experiences, to check it out. So try to combine your good intention with the wish that it be of benefit, not only for yourself, but that it ripples out to benefit others. So do we expand on that wish? Let's recite the four measurables. It's on page 34 of the prayer book. And you may need to share. Page 34. So the four measurables are about the four measurable minds, minds that have no boundaries. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from all beings into our circle of concern. So it's just a practice to try to start thinking in terms of, not just my friends and loved ones or my coworkers or the people I know, but just to kind of expand it all out, to everyone, even people we don't like or struggle with. Francesca. Put your glasses on the prayer book. Sorry. Got it. Some people come to all my classes, and so I give them extra tips. So anyway, all right. So lately we've been talking about trying to, the steps of cultivating great compassion. This idea of really wishing all great, just in Buddhism, in the context, it just means every single sentient being, whether they're a mosquito or a human being, that anything that can experience pain, we wish them to be free of that pain. So, and that includes us. Yay. So, but there's, it's not easy to feel this way about everybody. So one of the things that we try to cultivate is like the last sentence says, may I be free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Sort of this mind that sees all beings as equal, equal in wanting happiness and equal and wanting to be free of suffering, and that we want to cultivate the heart that wishes that to happen for everyone, regardless of how, from our own perspective, whether we see them as friends, enemies, or strangers, because that changes. And of course, that's just only from one being's point of view, because everybody's group of friends, enemies, strangers is individual to them. So we want to try to remove that barrier in terms of our desire to benefit others. But, it doesn't mean we don't have friends, we don't need friends, blah, blah, blah. But it's... Hey, Rebecca, you can't sneak in, you do understand that. This is our former director. So, but, so we're trying to really understand that our preferences are, the things we like, the things we don't like, are all just around our own perspective. The things that we like, other people don't like, And the preference is not a problem at all, unless it gets in the way of our treating others equally. So it's fine to have different kinds of relationships with different people. That's of course, But it's just that in our hearts, we just don't want to put some above others and others below everybody else. You know, that's not particularly skillful, because our labels of others change all the time. You know? So we want to be, to work at not holding so tightly to our own labels when we're trying to benefit others. So last week we talked a little bit about, what did we talk about last week? I knew just an hour ago. What did we talk about last week? We talked about, we talked about the continuity of mind, that in the Buddhist teachings, you know, there's no beginning, you know, to our consciousness. We just keep changing guest houses of the mind. So that if you look at things like that, it actually becomes possible to consider that all sentient beings have actually been in the relationship as mother to us. Did we talk about that last Sunday? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sometimes I get Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Sundays mixed up. So today, so the purpose of that is to remove this sense of friend, enemy, stranger, as you know, to the possibility that every single sentient being at one point, and probably more than one point if we've been around for beginningless time, has been our friend, has been our mother, has been our father, has been our boss, has been our employee, has been our own precious child, you know, that we've all played every role for everybody at some point or another. Not just once, but many times. So that whatever we are experiencing in this life, you know, whatever our relationships are with, you know, individuals right now, does not define our relationships over time. You know, they're just particular to, you know, how we relate in this life. So we don't have to hold so tightly to it, that it's actually possible to, you know, expand our hearts, to really wish for others, to have the conditions for happiness, and to have the conditions to be free from suffering. So the next step in these teachings on how to cultivate great compassion, great love, bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, because it's only through enlightenment that we remove all of our ignorance and actually will know exactly what we're doing when we're benefiting others. So that's our long-term big goal in Buddhism. But in the meantime, if you're not there yet, if you're like me and have lots of ignorance, lots of, you know, whatever the opposite of wisdom is, so that. So the next step, so we try to consider just, you know, breaking down our barriers or our little fixed pigeonholes of people, you know, putting them in these friend, enemy, stranger slots, okay? And consider the possibility that everybody could be our friend, you know? And then we try to remember the kindness of others. And so in the traditional teachings, we talk about the kindness of the mom, because, you know, everybody has one, whether they knew them or not. You know, we need a mom, we need, you know, we have, you know, we get our bodies from our parents. So it's an easy place to start. Until they came to the West and tried to and then everybody had a slightly different view of the mother, or the father. So it's important to keep in mind in this teaching, just to, you know, it's really just looking at the fact that if we are here right now, someone took care of us when we were helpless. You know, we were fed, we were clothed, we were protected from death. If we're alive now, someone took care of us, you know, because we spent a significant portion of our childhood really helpless, totally dependent on someone taking care of us. And so we want to think about the kindness of that. You know, that even, you know, like we talked about a little bit last week, you know, that we might need to reframe our idea of kindness. You know, that kindness is the fact that we benefit from them, that it's kind, that other people do things that we benefit from. Not whether or not they have the right attitude when they do it. You know? I mean, I'm sure after the, 3,000th poopy diaper, it was not the parents' favorite job. So, but it's still kind that they kept you clean, even though it might not be their favorite thing to do. So, it's just this recognition that sometimes we barricade our hearts from the kindness we receive because it wasn't done exactly like we think it should have been done. And so we want to kind of let go of that. And that can be difficult. But so, one way to try this out is, okay, I want everybody to just think of something that they use today. There might be an apple, something that you ate, but either a piece of clothing, soap, shower, your toothbrush, the chair you're sitting on. Just pick one thing that you've used today. Everybody got something?
Yes.
Okay. Now, try to think about all the people involved in making that thing. So, there's not just the product itself, but all the parts of the product. So you have all these raw materials. So think about all the beings that were involved in producing the raw materials. Then somebody had an idea of how to put those raw materials together into this product that you used. If it's food, you can think about the centuries of effort of sentient beings figuring out how to grow crops, what's necessary for crops to grow, how you need to protect seeds so that they're future crops. And then you can think about, all the people involved in the roads that those products were transported to you on, all the concrete or asphalt or dirt, all the cars or trucks or trains, and all the people involved in making all of those things work. All the people that we can just thank for showing up to work today for things that we're going to use in the future. And you can just think about how incredible it is that all the causes and conditions for any one thing ever came together at all. It's amazing how interconnected and interdependent we are on both the physical things of the universe and the non-physical consciousness, the thoughts that allow people to help us. The participation that's necessary for every single thing we use. And you can just imagine all these people gathering. I always think of the old Coca-Cola commercials, around Christmas, singing a tune on a hill. But you imagine all of these beings that were involved in the production of this one thing. And just wishing them to be happy and to be free of suffering. But just like you, they have struggles and difficulties. There are many days they don't wish to go to work. There are many days they wish they could go to work but didn't have any work. But knowing that whatever this object was that you used today wouldn't exist if any one of them were missing. And in this way, we can recognize that our relationship with many, 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 many beings right now exist, even though we're not usually aware of it. Okay, so what do you think? Now you can argue with me. Yes?
I have a question. I mean, it seems like in Buddhism, the motivation is critical
Yeah.
in acting.
But yeah.
So, what you've just described is a real ideal, I think, and in terms of
That's what we're aiming for, is the
right.
idea.
So, in terms of really training your mind and kind of trying to create a shift in your perspective, so that you do have this feeling of gratitude and you recognize the interdependence of life. But I guess my question is, you have people in all kinds of settings where they're getting institutional care, whether it's babies in an orphanage or people in hospital settings or people in nursing homes, and they die and perish or they weaken or whatever anyway, because despite all the caregiving that's there,
The body dies.
they're not loved.
You're going to also die.
Right, but I mean, if the action isn't propelled or motivated with,
Okay, I'm not talking to them.
okay,
I'm talking to the people who are here right now.
right,
Because that's all we have control over, is our own mind. So we can't fix other people's minds. We can't go out and make sure no one has poor conditions. Okay? What we can do is create the mind that does its best to not be a condition for those things. If all of us get our act together and are able to come from a really idyllic, like you said, place, then that's going to ripple out to benefit all the people around us, who will benefit all the people around them, who will benefit all the people around them. So getting hooked by the fact that we can't help every single person that's happening right now is kind of missing the idea of trying to work on, our own hearts so that we include everyone. So that we don't walk past someone who's suffering on the street and be unconcerned whether they have any food. That kind of thing. It's very challenging. But the idea of exercises like this, like the perfection of, for example, generosity, isn't that everybody has resources. Because we can't do that. All we can do is wish that everybody had resources. And all we can do is help be a condition for people to have resources when we have resources. We can't fix the problems of every person. Why is that according to Buddhism, for those of you who might think you have a clue?
The problems lie in their own minds.
Because we create the cause for what we experience. So if we don't have resources, that, is a clue to our past actions. Now this is a big picture view. And I need my red slide from Thursday night. We're talking about karma on Thursday nights and discovering Buddhism. And I made this red slide that said the purpose of thinking about karma is not judging ourselves or others. That we don't look at, Yeah, just a second, please. We don't look at, cause and effect as a way to say, oh, well, I know what you were like in a past life. You weren't very generous. Just a second. Yeah.
This may or may not be appropriate for what you were trying to get at, but I I used to be an escort, and I'm trying to change my behavior. But how? By changing my relationship to myself and to those clients, how do I change that resentment that I have toward myself and toward
Right.
those people by spreading, this compassion?
Well, the teachings say, that's a really good question, the teachings say it's really important to begin with yourself. So, if you have a lot of issues about your own actions or your own thoughts or whatever, that the place you start with compassion is visualizing yourself and having compassion for yourself. Really having compassion and understanding for all the causes and conditions that had to come together for that, these circumstances to arise for you, for the choices you made, and have compassion about that. Really wish you to be free of suffering and to have the causes of happiness. We have to start with really, this is what the Buddha's first teaching is on the truth of suffering. And we have to start looking at our own. That our actions arise out of our misunderstanding about how we exist. They arise out of this need to be happy, this desire to be happy, this understandable wish to be free of suffering. And we don't know what we're doing. We mistakenly think that, okay, if I do this, I'll be happy, I'll do that. And we don't go inward and discover the inner wisdom that we need in order to really take good care of ourselves. So it's about recognizing, and we really need to understand, this is why, a lot of people have trouble with this part, of really looking at their own situations and understand, allow the truth of suffering to be present, and sitting with that, sitting with this recognition that, wow, no matter what I do, the best I'm going to get is, good circumstances in this life, and then I die. And I have to leave everybody I love behind, and all of that stuff. That this is a very difficult existence we experience. It's full of partings, it's full of pain and suffering, it's full of the unkind words, unkind actions, unskillful words, unskillful actions, all the thoughts that we have. Life is hard, and we make it harder, So it's just a matter of being able to sit with the truth of suffering. And then that hopefully will help us, inspire us to look at what's the cause of suffering. Because the Buddha didn't just leave it there. He didn't say there's the truth of suffering and good luck with that. The purpose of him teaching about the truth of suffering is that there's actually a truth of the origin of suffering. There's a cause of suffering. And there's the truth of the cessation of suffering, that suffering can end. And there's a method to do that. So that's the truth of the path. So this is the idea that we don't look at suffering just have a realistic view of how things are for us. It's because we can uncover, if we're motivated enough, how we contribute to our suffering. And if we can then learn how to stop contributing to our suffering. And one of the ways of doing that, this idea of trying to expand our heart to include ourselves, when the Tibetans first came teaching here, they first came over, and people would talk about their low self-esteem. They had no clue what we were talking about. His Holiness said he just sat there in shock because that wasn't a cultural thing for the Tibetans. So, it's like they started a different place. We're all caught up. We have a lot of self-esteem issues. So, we have to start there. So it's interesting. Anyway, so this idea of trying to look at all sentient beings as equal to ourselves and wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer is also trying to develop this recognition we are all in the same boat. We don't know what we're doing. We make endless mistakes trying to be happy because we don't know what we're doing. We think happiness exists out here. We have to get something to be happy. So we spend our whole life chasing after meeting the desires that arise, or meeting the desires of others because we think that will make us happy. We have this, it's like a business contract. We keep seeking, oh, I should be able to buy happiness, or I should be able to finally find, that perfect relationship and I'll have happiness, and then, or that perfect job, and then I'll have either, the perfect job makes me happy, or the money that the job gives me makes me happy. Whereas, really, it's our inner process that we need to develop to find our way out of suffering. So we need to pay, most of us spend some time on our bodies to try to, stay healthy or, feel good because we physically feel good. We also need to spend time in our minds because our mind is really the most important condition, our state of mind, the ways in which we are equal to each other, and the ways in which we are so dependent on the participation of everyone, whether their participation is in providing an opportunity for ourselves to have jobs, or the truth of the matter is that all of our good qualities, generosity and patience and kindness and even, wisdom, comes up, we develop it through our interactions with others because other people need something from us. So we are really dependent on each other even for our good qualities. So the people who are difficult, that we find really difficult to be around, they give us the gift of patience. We can't develop patience without them. So learning how to open our hearts to what the opportunities that exist, no matter what the conditions are, is what is sort of the challenge. So, yeah.
Okay, one of these is some complementary that I experienced in my life. She just mentioned that before. When you send vibration, you cultivate your mind. You don't just send it compassion and love to others. When I'm doing normally, sometimes during the day, all the time, I catch myself when I go through hospitals. I picture everybody just like going home healthy.
Yeah.
Just like the prisons, just like nobody isn't there. Everything is completely imperfect, And then when you do that, you just send your vibration, your energy, and then you just like cultivate that to others. I think this is the better thing we can do because we are not capable to just, we don't have enough money to just give to everybody. We don't have, the only thing we can do is like cultivate that inside. This is my understood, I don't know.
Yes, so this is the thing. So can we all see what might be the benefit of wherever we are, wishing the people that are around us are well and happy and at peace? How do well, happy, peaceful people act? Or do we welcome them to our parties?
Yes.
Are they the people we want to have lunch with?
Yes.
This is the thing, is that it's, But anyway, okay, all right. Let me turn this thing on. So, I like collecting good news stories because we need them. No, because we.
Sorry, that was really funny.
Sorry. I'm all for humor. So, this. Oh, it's on. Okay. So we can all now make the prayer, but my technology karma doesn't extend to everything else. So, okay. Oops.
CNN.
Go back. There we go. We're not gonna listen to the commercial, but we have to kind of sit through it because it's a rule. So, because this is how we participate.
Right.
People need to sell products, they need to make money, then, all this kind of stuff. CNN needs to have it in order to be able to, whatever, so. And it doesn't have one of those convenient things like skip this ad. But please don't break it.
The casino, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never stops. Everything good? Yeah, the banquet chef at Twin River Casino, we have huge volume. You are gonna end up with extra food. Inevitably, a lot of it would be thrown away.
So much of Providence just doesn't have enough to get by. Under the cereal, we feed close to 300 people a day.
Sweets!
Donations are critical.
There was a food pantry in my church that I grew up working in. You would have way too much of one thing and would be in desperate need of a different thing. Inevitably, some of it would expire. And I ended up throwing a lot of it away. How can there be 40 million Americans going hungry and up to 40% of the food supply going to waste? That's such an obvious thing to fix. I know we're about to pull in a lot of donors. Means is an online platform. So when a charity needs food, they tell us. And when a retailer has that food, we let them know automatically. The claim time average for the state is unbelievable. The recipients in Rhode Island have just been on it. Like every time. We're almost exclusively high school and college students, but we've helped find homes for about 1.8 million pounds of food since we opened in 2015.
Chicken, and more damn chicken. Now, when we have leftovers, in the morning we'll pan it up, weigh it, label it.
All a business needs to do is head to our website, tell us what they've got and when they need it gone by.
8 pans of summer squash, 20 pans of chicken, 500 pounds. It's available today. I just hit post.
Oh, it's 500 pounds. 8 pans of summer squash, 20 pans of barbecue chicken, and 28 agencies were notified.
Chicken, summer squash, rice, blank steak. I get a text, and assuming nobody has gotten there first, I claim the food.
This has now been claimed. It has turned green. You would really think that the novelty of it would wear off. It doesn't.
All right, I'll see you in a little while.
We're able to match up excess and need very, very quickly.
There he is. Good to see you. The people that are picking it up definitely need it. It's a win-win all the way around.
This is really 4 or 5 meals. That's big. That's a week. The simplicity of it, the fact that it's, oh, there's a text. Oh, and here's the food. It's magic. All right, there's lunch. We picked this food up 40 minutes ago. It's already on its way to the table. It's exciting that food that had a whole other job yesterday found this way better job today. How was lunch? Did we do okay? Yeah?
I'm definitely not having a normal college experience. What makes it worth it is knowing we're building something that matters a lot more than we do.
Isn't that fun?
That is super.
And what's, yeah,
Because I can't seem to get out. Okay. Okay.
Very nice.
What's interesting about this story to me, besides the fact that it's just good news, isn't it? But what it took for this to actually happen, because she started thinking about this when she was 15 in high school, but she didn't have any tech skills, but she met this guy who, in college, I think, who would, at the George Washington University law school, who was a tech person. And so he figured out a program for this. But then they had to get in touch with the people who needed the food, right? Well, they don't have generally like a website, and that most of the time they said they called like thousands of phone numbers from the phone book, and almost none of them worked. But none of them were the actual phone numbers of these places. So they had to handwrite notes to all of them, letting them know about this service, and mail them. Because the physical addresses usually didn't change. Because people who will do this kind of service know that location, if you change the location, it's hard for people to find out. So they just didn't do that. And then, it takes a lot of kids to like make it happen. It just takes a lot of people. So how does that happen?
Somebody imagine that?
Well, first of all, you have to have a thought. Surely this can be fixed.
Action.
And someone took the initiative to move on it.
Okay. And then they connected all these people together, right? They recognized when there was this person might know how to do this, or this person actually, the person who was the tech person just said, I think I could create a program for this, the software program. But what is driving it?
They're a very giving person.
Generosity.
Yeah.
Compassion.
It's that motivation you were talking about, So we have to feed our motivation. We can't just wait for someone else to make it happen for us. We have to help ourselves out with it. We have to want it. And I thought her closing statement was so beautiful, where she said she just found, that she's not having this normal college life, that she doesn't have the GPA score that she might have if she wasn't doing this. But she felt that that this was more important than themselves. And this is the mind that the Buddha is trying to encourage us through the teachings to cultivate. Now this, since she started, at 15 or something, it's really likely she brought the habit with her from a previous life. So, we don't have to be envious that this person, has this skill and we don't. If we don't have this skill, it's just a matter of developing it. It's like, because sometimes what stops us, is this feeling that it's impossible. That it's, so we have to, overcome that, because that's an obstacle.
The other thing I noted that she said was the novelty never wears off.
Yes,
Right.
and that's where she's feeding them. Every time the match gets made between the food and people who need the food, she feels good. The Buddha said this is where happiness comes from. It's from cherishing others. It's from really wanting to benefit others. But where do we have to start? We have to cherish ourselves. We have to recognize that, this is why, this is the idea of Buddha potential. The Buddha taught that every single sentient being, every being with a mind, has the ability to become a Buddha. Maybe not in this life. Most mosquitoes are not going to become Buddhas in this life because they don't have the physical support they need for their mind to be able to transform. But human beings do, if we have good conditions. You know, if we have the ability to have time to reflect on what's going on in our mind, to see what the ways in which we get in our own way. You know, but we need to do that with a lot of gentleness and compassion towards ourselves, because it's a process of learning. It's not something that we can just, you know, go wishing makes it so. We have to cultivate and practice the skills, because we have habits of mind that are in our way. You know? And so we just need, like it's a little thing. Now it's a big thing, sorry, language is everything, isn't it? So, but if we start, we don't need to worry about where we'll end up. We'll get there. It really is just going in the right direction will get us there. It doesn't matter how long it takes. If we don't start, we will not get there. You know, it's really, you know, logical. But it does help to cultivate this motivation of, you know, so like if you have self-esteem issues or have, you know, we really need to cultivate that our happiness is worth pursuing, that it's valuable. Now we have to really be careful by what we mean by happiness. You know, that's where I think His Holiness and Archbishop Desmond Tutu's book, The Book of Joy, is helpful. But this inner feeling of contentment, of feeling good enough, this inner feeling of self-respect, a feeling like there's a purpose, a feeling like your life is meaningful, all of these things can help feed our actions to go towards, you know, our good qualities. So but we have to remember that taking care of our mind, our heart, is valuable, and that takes some time and quiet space to do it in, which exists fortunately in our minds. We just have to find it. You know, I don't get the impression that this young woman slowed down at all. So, but she clearly already had a lot of practice. You know, but we need to, you know, what do y'all reward yourself with? Okay, chocolate, food,
Good laughing.
laughing, that's nice.
Yeah.
Extra sleep.
I'm my own reward.
Oh, you're so good. I'm glad you sit straight in front of me. Nobody watches TV or goes to the movies or listens to music or any of those things?
Yes.
Okay. You know,
As a reward or just for enjoyment?
or just to goof off, or just because we're not really thinking about how to use our time well.
Right.
You know, we have to be honest with ourselves. You know, because often we'll tell ourselves, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time to sit quietly. I have time to watch the Game of Thrones, but I do not have time to sit quietly. You know, what's that other one, The Walking Dead or something? That's really popular too. Really, people? Let's think about that. So, I read murder mysteries, you know, and I can rationalize it all day. I'm lying, but there you go. So, what we really want to recognize, you know, like, what are we doing to support ourselves in this wish to do things differently. You know, because most of us, if you have a busy life, what does that mean? You're going to have to give something up. It has to be a choice. You have to make the choice to spend some time doing this instead of that. You know? So it's really worthwhile spending a little time looking at what you do spend your time with, and seeing if there's anything in it that you can just quit doing because you don't like it and don't need to do it, and really, why are you bothering? Those are the ideal. So if you have those, gee, go for that. If you don't have any of those, then you really have you have a slightly more difficult choice to make. But also, it's about making sure whatever you're doing, that you're aware of it. First of all, the more focused we are in whatever we're doing, studies show we're happier, period. So that's easy enough. So, but also, it takes us less time to do it. If you're spending all your time cleaning your house trying to find those things that you left in the other room or blah, 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 because you really don't want to have to clean your house, but so you get easily distracted from it, then, you're kind of killing time. And we don't have time to kill. Especially like whoever said more sleep, so, we want to just be much more conscientious for ourselves. And then recognize, that if we take, this is part of self-care, that we can benefit others more if we do this kind of self-care. So it's one thing, we need to eat right, we need to exercise. What does that help us with? Energy, mood.
Have a better vibe for others. Vibration can make it better for others.
That's right. We're sending out good vibes if you don't have my mind when you exercise. So, but the thing of it is, we need a certain healthy body if we can. Not all of us have the choice, so we take care of that. That benefits others because we have some energy, we're not having, sugar crashes, all that kind of stuff. Then, we also need to take care of some time spent on our mind. Cultivating our heart, and so that might be, watching one of the clips about the CNN heroes, just because it just opens your heart a little bit. And then if you realize that from there you go to feeling bad about yourself, then you want to take care of that. If you feel like, oh, I've wasted my life, I could be doing so many things that were more helpful, if I'd been, whatever. That doesn't help. First of all, we can't erase our past, but it doesn't define us. In every new moment, we have choices if we're paying attention, if we can be aware of what we want to do with our next moment. And this is just about the mind. Obviously, we don't have choices about everything we can do. We have limitations there. But our mind doesn't share the limitations our bodies has. We can cultivate our heart to expand and include all beings because it doesn't have any boundaries. It's not like, oh, if I take these 10 people in, I have to push these 10 people out. It's not like that. It also means, though, that we have to, in our mind, when we're looking at our own self-view, recognize that we're not Buddhas. We can't just emanate billions of beings to go help billions of beings. There's only so much we can do. We have to be accepting of that. but our mind is very powerful. So if we don't keep having a mind of, oh, it's impossible, or it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter blah, 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 it doesn't matter because it's impossible, we are just, becoming this one major obstacle. So when the Buddha teaches about all these states of mind we want to cultivate, and those we want to abandon, the goal isn't eliminating poverty or eliminating unethical behavior, because we're not in control of other people. We can be a condition for other people. The Buddha's teachings can help ourselves, it can be a condition for us to decide, make different decisions about what we think or what we do next. But we have to choose. But if we don't close our heart off to others, that means when there is an opportunity to be of benefit, we'll see it. Because we're open to it. And we'd love to be able to help if we can. Because sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but you're busy, you have lots of responsibilities, you have all these things to do, and so somebody comes walking your way and they look like they need something, and you want to run, We have to recognize this in ourselves, so we can pause for a moment and say, really, can I really not be bothered? And choose. Because it's okay to say, no, I really can't, I'm full, I don't have a copy of it. There's this paragraph in the Lamrim Chinmo, the great treatise on the graduated path to enlightenment, which is one of the major texts in this tradition, where the Lama Tsongkhapa says, if someone asks something of you that you cannot give, once you've decided, no, you can't do that, then you let them know gently that it's, that I'm sorry, I'm practicing, but I haven't succeeded, and I'm not feeling generous today. That you own it, Of course, it's much easier in a monastery to tell people that. Yes?
Could you also apply that to yourself? For example, could you set a really high expectation for yourself and then not necessarily feel, apt to achieve such an expectation?
Yeah, expectations are pretty deadly. There's a difference, but because an expectation, the word expectation really seems to imply, a particular result. We don't have a whole lot of control over results. So what's important is to recognize when we're setting ourselves up to feel bad about what actually happens, because we have set up an unrealistic expectation, or that we're holding to an expectation that somebody else has to cooperate. That's really not wise, because if they didn't sign a contract to do it, they might not cooperate. And even if they have a contract, sometimes they don't cooperate. So, it's really about, so what they say is, we start with wishing to go. And then when we feel confidence in our skills or our resources, then we actually start to go. So that's the difference between aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. Is this, in the beginning we just sort of wish. I wish I could feel that way about sentient beings, or I wish I could, think this way. And then we practice, ways in which to help ourselves go in that direction, And then when we have quite a bit of success, perhaps, we kind of make it our job. So, you're like a 15-year-old who decides to create a program to connect people with surplus food with people who have not enough food. So it's just this, but yeah, so these are things we want to observe. You know, we want to observe how we think. Are we setting ourselves up to feel bad about ourselves because we're making this ridiculous, you know, plan of action, you know, instead of just, you know, that's just too big. You know, this is, you know, this, you know, so we like, this is why it's so helpful to set intentions with everything we do. So you get up in the morning, you set an intention, you know, to like notice the people around you at breakfast. You know, if there are people around you at breakfast, you know, that you happen to care about. So you might want to notice them at breakfast instead of being just 3,000 miles away, wishing you could avoid work. Whatever. So, but making, you know, and then you try to do that. And then you think, oh, now I'm at work, so I'm going to try to be patient for the next, you know, 27 minutes. My personal ones are things like 27 seconds. I'll be patient for the next, you know, while I drive, I'll be patient from this stoplight to the next one. You know, you got to start where you are. Because we don't want to start the habit of lying. You know, lying to ourselves, setting ourselves up to be disappointed in ourselves, you know, as opposed to just, you know, I'm going to try to do this. I had a friend who used to mark their hand, you know, whenever they lost their patience, you know, and whenever they did something kind, you know, so they could at the end of the day go, yeah, not too bad. So, but you have to be observant, first of all, to even do that. And this also can let you know if you have the habit of only noticing what's wrong. You know, if you don't count all the smiles you give to others, if you don't count the courtesies you do for others, if you don't count any of those and all you count is, it wasn't very nice to so-and-so, oh, I rolled my eyes at so-and-so, oh, I did this to so-and-so, oh, I had a nasty thought about so-and-so, you know, and you've got to this hand, you know, you might as well have just, you know, dipped it in the paint, you know, and this hand's kind of, nothing's there, you know, you want to look at that, because it cannot possibly be true. No. It's just not true. So we really want to be recognized. We want to be observant and honest and gentle and compassionate towards ourselves about what we discover when we look. Because it doesn't matter where we start. What matters is where we go. We can't do anything about where we start. We're here. We've arrived. You know, I made many comments in this teaching today that I wish had been different, you know, but hey, too late. You know? I can hold on to that so I don't say anything because I feel too scared about what I'm going to say, or I can let go of that and try to do better. You know, so it's just a, you know, it's not the 5-year plan. You know, is can I be kind for the next hour? And that means to yourself as well. You know, so if you catch your thoughts, you know, being, you know, constantly berating yourself, you want to try to intervene. You know, you can say things like, that's not true. You can talk back to your mind, because just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. We have habits of mind that are unskillful. There are habits of mind that we have that are very skillful. Our empathy, our compassion, our, you know, all those, you know, whatever motivates us to smile. All of those things, you know, we also do. And so when we trash ourselves in our mind, we're lying. And we really need to be firm with that mind and not listen to it. It is not helpful. You can stay stuck where you are and decide that your thinking is who you are, or you can recognize that, you can shake things up a bit and maybe not, follow every thought you have, because it's not worth listening to. I have lots of thoughts that are really not worth listening to. So, and they just reflect habits. Habits just kind of feel like a perpetual motion machine. Once it starts, it just keeps going, So we need to be able to kind of go, nope, I see what's happening. I'm going to interrupt this, and change my focus away from that, because that's not helpful. So we need tools to do that. You may have to write a paragraph of all the things that, that you like about yourself. Or you could start with one word. And so sometimes we need to practice, like, how would your best friend describe you? And look at it through their eyes. If you're really bad at it, this is not a skill you have, to treat yourself with kindness and compassion and appreciation, then practice using someone else's voice. And this doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge those parts of ourselves we'd like to change. We need to see them so that we can change them. If we keep acting like it's not true, we can't change them. But we want to have, a much more realistic self-appraisal, so we don't get hooked by these things, that, seem gargantuan, and recognize they're just one little thought, and a whole billions of thoughts, they don't have to control us. We can listen, not listen. With practice. It takes practice. And so, like, if you're, if you're like me, and you can be very impatient with people, then it's that kind of, you bring that mind that as soon as you see yourself being impatient, you try to get yourself out of the picture and look at this other person as a suffering, sentient being. Quit worrying about what you're getting from the situation, this is what I have to do to myself. I have to just go, oh, this is not a robot here. It's not like your computer that doesn't get tired. Although it sure seems to. But it's this, we have to start, we have to recognize the disadvantage of staying the same if it's something that's an obstacle to yourself. My impatience is a clear obstacle. Impatient nuns are not a good look. It's really embarrassing if I'm at a stoplight wanting to, like, scream at the person in front of me going, it doesn't get greener than that. And then somebody over here in the car next to me is looking over, and here's this, weird looking woman, but if they know I'm a nut, and I'm going, this is not a condition that I want to present to the world. I don't always succeed. Oh well, oops. But this is the thing. So those kinds of things are good mirrors for me. Like, oops, you're not behaving like you want to. So anytime you catch me, not being very kind, feel free to share. Because it's something I want to change. And I've had quite a bit of success over the years of changing this, Yes, we're all glad none of you knew me then. So, but this is, so we just have to recognize that it's a process, and that we do want to acknowledge where we could use some improvement, but we also want to acknowledge where we do well. Maybe you're really good at encouraging others. Maybe you're not so good at encouraging yourself, but you're really good at encouraging others. Rejoice in that. Be happy about that.
I think what helps me is write the things down,
Yep.
the good things and the bad things, and then review them, and that really helps.
Yeah. So, we want to find the tools that work for us. Because we want to notice over time if what we're doing is working. So you might discover if you spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the morning really setting trying to find your breath, and then remembering what's important to you. How does your day go?
A lot better.
So he says a lot better. So this is the kind of thing you want to notice. If you don't do these things, then you can't, there's nothing to notice, But the more we can just even kind of, like I use this little spot in my body that as soon as it starts to feel tight, I guess, I know some button's been pushed. It's like, so, and the more often that I'm able to go, okay, let's see this as a stop sign, to pause for a moment to see what's going on in my mind, what's hooked me, is it pride, is it, are my feelings hurt, or am I afraid, that helps me guide what I want to do next, to correct it. But that little sensation means, it's so easy for me to see it as that fish hook, It's very pinpointed until it gets really big, then it's everywhere. But that starting point, it's like, oh, I've been hooked. Okay, what is that? What's going on? And then I try to take care of me so that I can take care of others, so that I don't come from that spot and lash out or do something to someone else, and sometimes I don't know, sometimes it's just there and I kind of go, okay, but it's like that yellow alert sign, warning, proceed cautiously, because it's important. Why would I want to do that? We have to look at why would we want to do that.
To pay attention to that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's an early warning sign.
Of what?
Of a potential, being impatient in your case, or mine.
So who
or
cares?
whatever. Well, because it's harmful to others when you act in those manners.
But who
and to
cares?
yourself.
See, we kind of usually have to start with, and to yourself. So,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good. Yes, Rebecca.
Because if you can catch it, then you can keep your mouth, or you can prevent acting.
And you quit feeding it. You can, and you may not know you're feeding it. If you don't, it's usually because like when it gets really big, and then we look back, we can see perhaps our participation in making it bigger. But, but if we catch it early, and this just takes practice, it's just about being observant and realizing, oh, I'm not happy, And then if we take care of that,
You can change.
yes, you can change, but it's also smaller. It's a good time to interrupt it because it hasn't gotten super big. But that's not where we start, is it? First, we just start noticing what's going on, and then slowly, because we've been practicing paying attention, we'll start to see the preconditions before we act out or do something harmful to ourselves. Because it doesn't feel good. And so whenever we're in that state, we want it to go away. and we're misinformed about how to make that happen. You know, we may think, you know, oh, if I dump it onto somebody else, it'll go away because now they can take it with them. And that's not really what happens. You know, so we have to find a method to you know, it's like figuring out what can be our way, you know, sort of like writing it down. I need to find methods, you know, to not do something. It's like if you're impatient, I have so many ways of letting someone know they're annoying me. You know? I mean, I can say something in an even tone of voice that's really not nice. I can use body language. You know? There's so many ways to convey this to somebody else that so when I get that little hook, I have to really do nothing. So Shanti Deva, who's another one of the teachers in this tradition, says we need to become like a block of wood. Don't do anything. Don't do the face thing. Don't do the posture thing. Don't do anything. You know. Because what's really nice is to discover that, of course, it passes. You know, it's not like you stay there because it's not pleasant to be there. So, you know, it's not like if you don't feed it, you don't stay there. If you don't do anything, you know, our words, you know, feed it. Because usually our words are justifying our state of mind. You know, of course I'm impatient because you're being slow. You know?
I agree.
Yeah, you know? I mean, so anything that we do is supporting our bad state of mind, you know? It's like, oh, you know, that feeds it. So when we do nothing at all, it can pass. Now this takes practice, you know? But it has a benefit to us in that that moment will last shorter and shorter amounts of time. You know, so we suffer less, which we like, usually. Yeah. So, okay. I'm sure this wasn't remotely where we started. Oh, this idea of growing our compassion and thinking about the kindness of others. It's just this idea of being able to relate to each other, even, and that doesn't mean talking or saying, you know, I mean, just in our minds, our mental relationship with others that we see, we think about, whatever, the more we can recognize that they're just like us. You know, they're struggling, they have good days, bad days, blah, 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 you know, so that we put less barriers between us. The easier it is to keep our hearts open to people, whether they're strangers, enemies, or friends. Yes?
Thought that's in my head right now is, how does happiness tie in with all of this? Is happiness a state of mind? Is it a decision that I make? Like, for example, I get great happiness spending time with my daughter, you know, holding her hand and taking care of her.
Yep.
So how does that fit into?
Oh, it's a state of mind, isn't it? It's an experience. It's a mental experience. Now, we can choose, well, it's not like we can just flip a switch. you know. But we can have conditions. You know, like if you know that you usually are in a pretty good mood when you're around a certain person, you know, you certainly can spend time with them. You need to, you know. That's a good idea. That's a good plan. If there's people or a person that you know that you don't act very well when you're around them, or they bring you down, then it's okay to guard your mind from them. You know, that we can choose good conditions or better conditions than other conditions while we're learning. You know, eventually though we can understand that we can cultivate a certain peace of mind. Doesn't matter what's happening. You know, that, you know, the happiness we may feel when we're taking care of our children is a bonus. It's like extra, you know, happiness. You know, because we happen to be, you know, but it's eventually it will not matter. I remember reading somewhere where Tenzin Palmo, who's she was one of the first Western nuns, and she's the one who wrote Cave in the Snow because she spent 12 years in retreat, and but she decided to help a group of Tibetan nuns, or actually just, you know, because, you know, they're not allowed to practice in their own country all the time. So a lot of Tibetans left, you know, Tibetan monastics in particular left Tibet so that they could practice. So they went into exile, but they lost a lot of their lineages in that process. You know, they you know, the relationships between teachers and students were broken, and then, you know, and people died, and, you know, all this kind of thing. So there was a danger of a certain transmission of certain teachings to be lost completely because there was no one learning them before the elders, you know, died. So she took it upon herself to try to use her connections in the West to try to raise the funds in order to pull these people together, the teachers and the students, you know, and give them a place to live and food and da-da-da-da-da. So she often does a teaching circuit around the world to bring awareness to these situations, and to also share her wisdom of the Dharma. Okay, I may have talked too long, so now I can't remember what I was going to say. So what did she say? Oh, someone said about her, one of the books about her said that when they're in her presence, they feel totally with her, you know, like she's right there hearing every word you say, you know, but you also have the feeling that when you leave the room, she doesn't follow you, you know, that, you know, she's just able to be in that, wherever she is, fully present, you know, helping the people that are right there, not thinking about the people that aren't there, that she can't help in that moment, you know. That's part of how we cultivate that inner happiness, where it's not remotely dependent on what's out here. It's just where you start. It's the place from which you come. That inner, you know, it's that inner wisdom of, you know, that really simple kind of thing, like who's the most important person? The person you're with now. What's the most important thing you're doing? It's what you're doing now. You know, and so the more we can become congruent with that, with our mind, so we're not always somewhere else, and that also we're aware of the choices we make, you know, like, okay, you know, maybe tonight I won't watch this television show because I really don't care about this television show, but it's just on, you know, but I'll turn it off and I'm going to spend some time reflecting about my day and blah, blah, blah. You know, supporting my inner process and not just, you know, trying to zone out and escape from my day. Okay. Okay, so All right, so today, let's see, today is Adrian's birthday. I know that one. Where is she? There you are. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So after class, anybody who wants to go to the Indian restaurant below us for a buffet meal, I mean, you know, if you want to pay for your lunch and go down and
We're not invited.
I don't want to mislead you at all. So, and join others who will be doing the same and celebrating the recent birthdays. I mean, I think Petty had a birthday on Friday. Petty's behind you. And
Llama was on Halloween.
Yeah, Llama was Halloween. Ralph was recently.
Happy birthday.
Who else?
Rebecca was the beginning of October.
Right.
Who else? October, November. Any other birthday?
November 17th.
There you go. That's the same as my brother.
October 4th.
October 4th. So we're celebrating the continuation of our consciousness from moment to moment. So, you know, and feeding this particular body. So if you want to do that. What else is on this week's thing?
We also have, tomorrow night is the last visualization meditation will be on Green Tara. Jackie.
Which is hiding underneath here. So, Green Tara has her foot out, which you really can't see in there. It's got so many colors, and she's green, so it's kind of hard to see. But she has her right foot out, ready to get up and help. She represents enlightened activity.
I love Green Tara.
Yes.
And then we have Saturday, a day of meditation.
Right. So Saturday, there's Jackie Keeley, who's our meditation wonder. Will be leading from, what time does it start? 10 to 4. Well, obviously with breaks.
Bring your own lunch for that. There's more information on the website and on the bulletins.
Okay. So, but that can be an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to take a day off from the electronic world, you know, from shopping, from chores, from, you know, I'm going to work on my mind and, you know, whatever. So that's an opportunity there. We're continuing on Thursday nights with our Discovering Buddhism series, and we're on karma. So bring your questions. So,
oh yeah, save the date for the holiday party. December 15th, Saturday evening.
Saturday evening. So our beloved director will cook for us, and it's also a fundraising thing. So we'll sell tickets, but save the date. So December 15th, Saturday. What else do we have?
That's it. That's all I can think of. And thank you all for your generosity, your donations, big and small. We really, really appreciate everything.
Yes. We exist because of that. We can't. There's no one else helping us. It's based. It's you. We are it. So, and I mostly just spend your money. So, you know, so all support is helpful to keep that, you know, overused air conditioning going, the lights on, me fed, which, you know, and me and chocolate, that can be costly. So, but anyway, so, you know, on your way out, introduce yourself to someone else, say hello, so that we can have, you know, let fewer strangers here. So, is there anything else I'm supposed to do?
I think our dedication.
Oh, we can do that. We can do that. So at the beginning, we set a motivation. And so the bookend for the other side of our practice of any activity we do, because you can do this all day long with your own activities, you know, but you set a motivation like, oh, I'm spending my next hour with my kids, and so I'm going to pay attention to them, and I want to share my, you know, warm heart and my wonderful wisdom with them, whatever. And then at the end, we want to dedicate the benefits that arise from our positive efforts to others. And so the prayer's on what, 246? 246. So this is, you know, this is sending out that positive energy. It's a positive vibe. So rejoice in your own efforts and everybody else's efforts. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, attain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, may people forever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored or finally repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never recur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. One more thing. Nicole, is there a medicine Buddha Puja this week?
Next week, the 15th.
Okay, week from Thursday. Okay, never mind. Have a great Sunday. Say hello to each other.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Hello, each other.